Welcome to Her Love of Sports with your host, Katie Hamilton.
Hey everyone, welcome to Her Love of Sports, where we are highlighting professional women in sports. I'm Katie Hamilton, host of Her Love of Sports, and we look forward to bring to you interviews and in-depth conversations with professional athletes, coaches, and much more. Joining us today, she is a 2-time Olympic medalist, 13-time world champion, and 3-time world record holder, Canadian sprint canoeer, Laurence Vincent Lapointe. Laurence, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to hear your journey. So I'd love to start of how you got into the sport.
Well, the thing is, it's as any kid starts a sport, really. I mean, I was tired of going to summer camps, and obviously my parents wouldn't want me to stay at home all day and just do nothing aside from being on computers and stuff. So they asked me to find something, and I actually did. I had 2 really, really good friends who were doing my sport before, and I just tried. And honestly, I was really bad, but I stuck with it, and there we are.
At what age did you join?
I started when I was 12, and it has been 17 years to this day.
Wow, that's amazing. And for people that don't know, so is it more club-based, or is it offered through like your high school and as well?
It is more of a club-based sport. You can also, like, once you get on a higher level, you get on your province's team, and then if you're good enough, you get on the national team. Yeah.
And you're from Quebec, so you were on the Quebec national team. Do you find it's more popular in certain provinces or certain area countries around the world?
Yeah, so far from what I've seen, it is much more of a Eastern Canadian sport. There are some team in British Columbia and more Western provinces, but they're not as big and really it's not as popular. There's more rowing there, from what I know. And yeah, it is a pretty popular sport in Canada because it is Canadian, like based on Canadian history. But from what I know, it's way more popular in Europe, for example. Or Hungarians are crazy about it.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's dive into it. You have so many accomplishments in the sport. Recently, you're a 2-time Olympic medalist. You are a silver in the C1 200 meters and bronze in the C2 500 meters. So just kind of talk to me about that experience, your journey to the Olympics.
Oh, wow. That's a big question. I mean, there's been so many things because from my whole career, I was always doing really, really good. And I was always like, if not first, I was still on the podium or very, very close by. And I think even coming into the Olympics, I had like world records either from world championships or from World Cups, which are not considered world records, but still, like, I had the best times in the world. And then in 2019, I got suspended. I don't know if you're aware of that fact. Yes. I got suspended because I failed a doping test. And this in an athlete's career is the one thing you never want to hear. And it was so complicated. And that was in 2019. And after months of looking around to nowhere or how I got contaminated, I realized that my ex had actually taken something, and not only once, like he was actually using something. And then he transferred it to me via like just a kiss. Just a basic little kiss with your boyfriend was all it took to get me suspended for a full 6 months. And after that, when I got cleared, COVID hit about 2 or 3 months later. So it was not easy. I had to overcome a lot of things. And well, I finally got to the Olympic Games, and that was just the perfect moment.
I was going to ask about that obstacle that you faced with getting suspended, because you were in your hotel room, correct? And you received an email saying that you have tested positive for this banned substance. Mm-hmm. And especially with all the other obstacles that you mentioned with COVID happening and having it in 2019. And that's just so close. You've been training so hard for the Olympics to have that taken away. What was kind of going through your mind? Like what's kind of that process? And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. When I heard the news, I was actually like about a week before World Championships in 2019. And I was in a training camp in Germany. I was doing so well. I was fast and I was feeling good. And, mentally, physically, I was ready to race, ready to qualify, because 2019 was supposed to be the year where my partner and I qualified together. And I also qualified my spot in the Olympic for Canada. So the way it works is you qualify your country, and then the year of the Olympics, you requalify within Canada. But that was like the big race, 2019, and I got suspended about a week before. And honestly, when I first read it was a letter, it was an email. And from what I know, my federation heard about it before me, and they were like a few hours, if not a few minutes before me. And they were they asked the organization in charge of the letter to actually tell me themselves. They were like, can we tell her it's a big news? Like, can we just sit down with her and let her know? And they were like, sure. And then 5 minutes later, they sent it to me.
Wow.
No matter, yeah, either way. And it was just, at first it was like, I thought I was part of a prank show. Like it was really dumb. Like I didn't believe it. I was like, what is this? Like, and when I sat down, because as soon as it happened, I went to see my team leader, and he sat me down and he was like, yeah, it's actually a thing. And when that, like, he confirmed to me, it just hit me. A brick wall hit me. And then after that, I was just basically like on the ground, cuddling my knees and asking for my mom. Yeah, that's basically how it goes. When something really bad like this happens, you just, ask for your mom and cry. Yeah. So yeah, it went like that. Then I had to not tell my team because I couldn't make them, I had to like let them be ready for their races. And so I had to hide it. And then I got home, and then, media's, everyone in my province and my country who were interested in the news got to know that I got suspended.
And not only getting suspended and having the excitement of preparing for the Olympics, and then that race again that you weren't able to do a week after finding out that you were suspended, is having it on your name too, right? Is now having it in the media as you're of a substance, right? And probably, when did you find out that it was from your boyfriend and that's how you were tested?
So yeah, you're totally right. Like, one of the things that made me the most mad was that at first, like, media's just jumped on it because so in my province there was a story of a girl, a cyclist who previously, like years ago, had been suspended, and she kept like claiming her innocence. She kept claiming like, no, I didn't do it. And then it was proven she was lying the whole time. So medias were really not, how do you say that? They were really harsh, and they just jumped on it, and they were like, oh my God, she's a cheater. And then everyone jumped on it, like, beside people who knew me. That's the crazy thing. Anyone who knew me was like, nah, there's no way. Like, I got hundreds of really beautiful, like, awesome messages that were like, we're with you, we believe you, there's no way. Anyone else? Yeah, but not you. So I was really thankful, and that really helped me. But for months, I really couldn't talk about what was happening because I, on one hand, was looking into every single aspect of what I had eaten. And I honestly, we're in 2022, and I still remember what I ate the week I got tested and then got suspended. Wow. So I had to look into everything I ate, everything I drank, people I was with, I even went through a lie detector test because why not? Although
Yeah,
it cannot
absolutely.
be like used as a prosecution or as like a proof or anything,
Mm-hmm.
it was still like it proved that I wanted to like prove my innocence. So I did that. I did so many tests, and I even got like hair taken off my head to test
Wow.
it. And so we did all that. Everything came back negative. Everything came back telling that I was telling the truth. But my lawyer at the time, who amazing lawyer, but also he had never defended any athlete. Like he was actually the one usually prosecuting athletes, but he believed in my case and he knew me from like through our sport and everything. He was like, "There's no way, so I'm gonna help you." But even with everything coming back negative, he was like, "There's no way to prove you didn't do it." And this is a case where you need to, because this substance specifically is one of those where you get suspended no matter what, right? So at one point, I asked my ex-boyfriend. At the time, we were still together, and we were like, you were the closest person to me. Maybe we should test you, as like I got tested for my hair, so maybe we should test you to see, who knows, if we can find one time, like one way to look. That's kind of what I was looking for, like just a piece of evidence that I could look somewhere and have find needle in the haystack. And well, it's more than a trace that I actually found through that. We found out that he had been using the substance for many months, and that he like not only didn't tell me that he was using, he got me contaminated, and after that he lied to me and hid that from me again. So yeah, until then, that was like 5 months in, almost like 4.5, 5 months in. And then we went for my audience. He actually testified, obviously, like he put me there. Hopefully you'll helping me get out of it. And then yeah, I got cleared. Sorry, it's a big story.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it. I mean, to be so open and to share your experience. And I'm sure it will help other people if someone's in a similar situation. I think it's so inspiring how you go through that challenge and then to come into the Olympics and to win your medals. I mean, that is incredible. And it's just so inspiring. And that's why I love your journey. And I'm so excited to speak with you. It's amazing. It's how do you keep, because that's a traumatic thing that you went through, right? Very stressful, both mind and body, and you're an elite athlete, an Olympic athlete, a world champion. How do you then change your whole mindset and get prepped and ready for the Olympics?
There's many things, because by then, so when I got suspended, I was lost for many months. And then I was really lucky to have people who still believed in me and gave me a chance not to train, because you're not allowed to train, but to go on a retreat, an athlete's retreat, to just talk about mental health and how we were living with things. And I got to meet other Olympic level athletes who I realized actually every single athlete gets major difficulties, as per everyone does. No one lives a perfect life. Everyone has at least one thing, and I realize athletes do. And the only difference between athletes and normal people who don't go to the Olympics is athletes, they just keep going. And when I came back from there, I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm suspended. I have no reason to believe in anything, but I'm just going to keep going. And that really helped me. And I tried to keep that mentality even after I got cleared and COVID hit, right? But by that time, actually, it was a relief to me. It's kind of sad because COVID is not good. We know, like, it's not been good at all. But it almost gave me a relief to know that instead of pushing myself for like the 8 months I would have had for the Olympic Games, I had the time to actually do things properly and to not put my mental health or physical health aside to train as a mad lady, you know? So it was good. And then I started with my new coach, because when I was suspended, there was some changes on the team, and my teammates were still there, and I mean, I'm so thankful to them. They were amazing. But yeah, new coach, and then with the new coach, I realized I needed a new psychologist because like my previous one was amazing, but I needed something more like performance based. And then yeah, we just worked together hard. It was a tag team with coach and psychologist to make it happen and get some breathing exercise and a lot of mental training, way more than anything I'd ever done in my career.
Let's fast forward to you winning the first medal of the games for yourself. What was that feeling like going through that finish line, knowing you won that medal after going through all of that, everything that you just said, your training, your new coach, and then having that accomplishment of, wow, look where we've come from and I've got that medal?
Well, the thing is, when I was going to the Olympic Games, I was feeling a very special type of way. I was feeling as if no matter how much time you ever would give me more than what I had, I'd never be as ready as I was. And I was talking with like athletes from my sport who had previously gone to the Olympic Games, and I was telling them how I was feeling, and everyone was like, this is amazing. This is how you want to be feeling. And that's how I felt. So when I got to the Olympic Games, I was like on cloud 9. And then I get there and I realize the weather, because my sport is outside, the weather is gonna be the worst. And I'm not like exaggerating. Think about the worst condition you can find in the sport for this specific discipline, and that's how it was. And I'm talking about like full-on side wind, because in my sport we paddle either on the left or on the right, and if the wind comes from across, it makes it 2-3 times harder to steer. And I knew my biggest competition was paddling on the right side, where the wind was coming from, which was easier, and I was on the wrong side. So this honestly was a challenge. My mental coach even had to tell me, like, all right, from now on, you are not allowed to say anything bad about the wind. I know you're mad, but if you keep going, you're not going to focus on racing. So just forget the wind. You're not allowed to say anything bad. So this was my last challenge through everything that happened. And honestly, when I passed the line and I realized I was second, there's nothing of like being disappointed that I was second. There was none of that, because, and it hit me so hard when I got on the podium, I just realized everything I had gone through and everything I had to fight against to get there on that podium. Not the least of all was the win, right? That was the lastest thing, but it was not small. And I even got through the wind to get on the podium. And it was amazing. I was just like hit by the feels. I suddenly like laughing and crying and just relieved and hit by a wall of emotions all at once. And then I realized after the podium that I cannot really celebrate, because the next day I have to race with my teammate and I'm not feeling ready at all. I am mentally and emotionally exhausted and I have to reset all of that, and that was tough. But we managed to, and my coach was great, my psychologist was great, and my teammate, she was amazing. She was just ready to go, ready to eat our competition basically, and we went at it and gave everything we had.
I love it. Absolutely. So inspiring and such a great journey to share for others, right? Mm-hmm. And it's probably amazing too, because you won that first one on your own, and then to win a second with your teammate who supported you and to have that connection. I mean, it sounds like the perfect ending to your story. It's amazing. The best kind of wind, I don't know if you touched on it, sorry, but the best air for you to have is to have it nice and flat, right? That's the best kind of weather you would want.
So the fairest for everyone is flat, obviously, because there's no wind to affect anyone. Then after that, we usually enjoy a bit of a tailwind because it just makes times faster. And by the way, when I say I was ready, I was like like world records ready during training. I casually would do times that would make me have a world record during training. So to know that I could not even give the best performance I could was also a bit of a, a little bit of a sad moment, but that's okay. That's another thing. But yeah, usually you want either flat or tailwind, or sometimes, if you have a headwind, again, not ideal, but more fair because everyone gets the headwind the same way. And then after that, you don't want side wind, but the worst of all, you don't want cross side wind. You don't want the one that's on the opposite side of you. And the funny thing, my teammates and I are a very unusual crew. We actually both paddle on the left side, which is very unnatural in our sport. Usually you want to have a left and a right, or inverse. We were both lefts. So with this kind of wind, it was also going to affect us really, really big time. And it did. We had to go through all the steps for selection, which we could have skipped one if we were doing better. But again, conditions and making sure you're keeping all your energy. We had to go through all of them. But for the last race, there was about a 30 minutes window where there was no wind. And that's when we were able to race the final.
Amazing.
It was just, meant to be. And yeah, we did our race plan. We were planning to just keep pushing like more in the second half of the race to make sure we had all the energy. And we went from 5th place halfway to 3rd place, which,
wow,
that's it. We did our job.
You did. What an amazing journey, an amazing story. I'm so happy for you. It just that, like I said, it just all came full circle. And look at you now with your 2 gold medals.
Yeah, thank you.
You just announced on April 4th that you're actually retiring from the sport.
Mm-hmm.
What were kind of your decisions around that?
We've talked a lot about my emotional journey and personal, growth through all those years. But one thing that I came to realize is that I didn't have any more energy to deal with everything that happens and happened. Even when you feel like you've put all of it behind you, it still feels like it's there. Because I was so paranoid to even have a relationship, or just whenever I would eat or drink something, I'd always think mental check, is this suspicious in any way? And be like, all right, this seems fine because I'm drinking tea, for example, just everything I would eat. It's literally, there was not a moment where if I didn't make it, there was not a moment where I wouldn't think about it, right? So this is a burden. And then not allowing yourself to even meet anyone because you're scared because the partner you were with for years was the one who contaminated you. So how do you trust someone you could meet on Tinder, for example? Impossible, right? So it just felt like I didn't have enough energy anymore to deal with all of that. And also on the other end, my coming out from the Olympic Games, I felt so accomplished and I felt like I had done everything I set out to do. Because so aside from my personal goals as an athlete, my biggest goal in my career was to actually see women be allowed in the Olympic Games for my sport, because it wasn't. I started my international career in 2010. And it was the first ever official world championships for women's canoe. There was 21 of us, and basically half of them had never paddled in a canoe before. So we've grown a lot from there. And all my career, I tried to prove that women's were allowed, should be allowed in the Olympic Games, that we were good enough and strong enough and fast enough. And all the time I got such bad criticism. Yeah, sorry about that. Saying women's are really just not good enough, shouldn't be in a sport. And it made me mad. And the realization of seeing women allowed in the Olympic Games and being part of this history, I feel like I just did everything I had to do. I did it. And honestly, after that, what motivation more do I have, right? I did everything I wanted. So after that, I really took a break and I just went back to school and went back to my normal life and tried to focus on my normal, everyday life and think, do I still want to go? And for a few months I tried, because this year, my sports world championships are in Canada. So I was hoping I could maybe, do one last race with my teammates. But I just realized it wasn't meant to be.
You felt so accomplished with where you left off, and to go through everything you did, it's very taxing on everything, your body, your mentally. And we talked about, before when we were messaging this morning, and you said that you were at class. So what are you taking at school?
So about 2 days before racing in Tokyo, I got accepted in my dream program, which is physiotherapy. So
wow.
First year as a new old student, I don't know how to say it. It's my third degree. I did one full one, and then I did one for like 3.5 years before I realized that I wasn't meant to be a nurse. And then I'm in my third degree, first year, and going back to school is really, really tough, but it's fun. It's fun. And I most of all love what I'm learning, and I really want to apply it. So it's motivating.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's outstanding.
Wow.
And to have, I bet all your sport, right? All helps with your education and everything like that. I mean, I would love to have you have an Olympic medalist. That's amazing. So is that's your career goal now? That's your focus is you've announced your retirement, and now your focus is, I know you're a public speaker as well. Your focus is to get your third degree and to pursue that career.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like I have somewhat of an Olympic dream of sorts. I mean, I really, really would like if along my career I could go back to the Olympics as a therapist, right? I mean, I did it as an athlete, and I feel like I have stuff to bring for athletes. So I would love to be allowed, to treat athletes and be there for them, because I realize how much therapists are not only there for the physical aspect, but the mental one. So I would love to be there for someone else, right? Help back down the line. And I just, that's kind of what I want to do.
I think that's great too. And that's why on Her Love of Sports is we like to highlight everyone, right? So it's not just athletes, it's all women in the industry from all different aspects. So just for people to hear, and for girls and for everyone to really hear that there's other areas you can go after being an athlete and still be involved in sports, I think is very inspiring too. What advice would you give to fellow athletes or to young girls that want to follow in your footsteps or are balancing school as well as being an athlete?
Well, there's one thing. First, you have to like and love what you do. You cannot do something for someone else. That's one thing I learned along my career, because at first I was doing it because I liked it, but I was not like passionate about it. And it was more because I was successful. So because I was successful, I was like, I'm just going to keep going as long as it works. And, at one point, it kind of hit me where I kind of failed, not necessarily because I wasn't good enough, but because I was not mentally prepped enough. That was in 2015. And at that time, I realized that I really had to choose why I was doing it. Was it because I was good, or because I really wanted to do it? And then that really helped me like come back even stronger, because from that point on, I did it for myself. And so anyone like who wants to do something, first, make sure you want to do it for yourself. After that, just never, like, always remember that anyone who tells you you cannot do something, they're not in the right. You have the choice to do whatever you want, and no one else can tell you otherwise. and just keep going. Like, one of the proudest thing right now for me is knowing that the younger girls in my sport are actually entitled to be allowed to being coached, right? When I started, no one wanted to coach me. People were all like, oh, just, give her to this person, they're gonna have her on the side of this group. And it was always like an afterthought. But now I see the girls who I've been training with in the last few years, and some of them are super young. Like, some of them are barely 18. In my mind, it's young.
Yeah.
But I look at them and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, she can be entitled to have the right to do everything I could not during my career. And this is so good, right? So just, if anyone tells you you can't, just don't listen to them and just do whatever you want to do. That's my tip.
I love it. That's perfect. You've heard it from Laurence. That is the way to go. Just don't listen to other people. You got it. Have you ever thought about being a coach?
Some people have told me I do a good coach, but one thing I feel like it would be a bit of a problem is I would prefer being a physio. And you cannot be both the physio and the coach, because think about it. If on the water it didn't go well and you're mad at your coach, you usually go see the therapist to not only like take care of your body, but also complain about your coach. So it's a problem if the coach and the physiotherapist is the same person. That doesn't work.
I love it. I'm sure you'd be an excellent at both of them, where they holding both positions. So you've had so many accomplishments. We've talked about it. Your Olympic medals, your 13-time world champion. You also had a gold medal at the Pan American Games. What would you say would be your either top two or your number one career moment?
So the number one for sure is the Olympic Games. After everything I had to go through to get there, there's no other moment that I can see. But I'd say my number two is probably, like I mentioned in passing, that in 2015 I got a fourth place, which sounds great. But to me at the time, it was really bad because I was always first. And then suddenly I missed one stroke during a race, and this gave me the fourth place. And after that, that's when I had to like reevaluate everything. Like, why am I even doing this? And I was even thinking like I'm worthless. Like, in my mind, I was a worthless person because I didn't manage to get like on the podium, right? So my second biggest moment is actually when in 2017, 2 years later, I came back because 2015, that happened. In 2016, because of school, I was full-time summer school. So I couldn't go in competitions. I did like a small international competition, more for fun than it was for anything else. So when I was able to come back in 2017, and then suddenly I came back so strong because I was like really motivated. That's, I feel like, my second biggest accomplishment. Just coming back with the motivation to give everything I had.
Wow. I know I'm extremely motivated after just talking to you about, just never giving up, not taking no for an answer. And I think in the sports industry, you do get quite a lot of those no's. I know I have had no's, and if you're passionate about it and you believe in yourself is the main key, and how you fight back, showing your character. And again, just hearing your story, I think it really amplifies that to just never giving up.
Yeah, there's one thing though. It seems so glamorous and all bright, and I know I've talked about like the darker side, but it happens day to day. It's not like for months you're like on your cloud and everything is amazing, and then suddenly you get a few days off. No, I mean, 1 day in the week, 2 days in a week, sometimes all the full weeks, you'll be feeling not as good, and that is okay, and that is normal. And that's one thing that, when we have to talk about mental health for athletes, that's something we forget to mention, is that it's normal. Like, I've heard so many athletes who have like eating disorders. It's not good. You need to work on them, but it happens. And it's not like no one should hide those things. They happen. They have to be talked about. But the one thing I've come to realize is that if you're able to do at least one thing during the day that's going forward, and sometimes I joke, but like I say, it can be as basic as getting up in the morning, making your bed. You did something going forward that day. And if it's the only thing you can do during that day to go forward, well, that's at least something you did, right? So I've come to realize as long as you try and do something that's moving forward, you're not going backward. So it looks simple, but it's hard. But it just and you can ask for help during those and doing that. Just yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And I think that's really key, right? It's those little things, like you said, if it's making your bed or it's getting up, or even if you go for it's hard if you're like, oh, I don't want to go to train today, but you get out there, you go for your walk or your run. That's a positive. That's a positive thing, right? Do you find with mental health, we talked about, do you find that there's support as an athlete in the industry? It's becoming more talked about, but it's still quite in that box, right? I know as a coach, we do have it arise. But yeah, I'd love to know how you feel supported as an athlete with that.
It is getting more talked about, but sadly, like there's never enough resources for the amount of athletes. And often the role of the mental coach goes to the actual coach, and they're not always equipped to do that. Like I had a coach, for example, along the way who was all about the physical training, but didn't really know how to deal at all about the mental aspect. And it was really bad because overworked and like mental problems and anxiety and how do you say that? Anger and a lot of things that were unresolved. And I feel like it needs to be even better. In my case, I was super lucky because not only with my team, my first psychologist from the team was they were the one who put me in contact with her. But then after that, my second one, the one I worked with during the Olympic Games and leading up to the games with my coach, he was someone I was introduced to via a not like a it's a private organization that helps athletes of really high level. It's called B210. And I was super lucky to be one of their athletes. They're also the ones who brought me on the retreat during my suspension because they were like, well, we're private. We don't have to give back any feedback to the government. That they have nothing to do with our business. So they decided to go, case by case, and they were like, we believe in you no matter what the media say. So we want to bring you with us. And they were the one who put me in contact with the psychologist. And within a day, I called them in the morning after trying to do like race simulation. It failed really bad. I was getting anxiety, and it was in the middle of COVID, right? I'm on the river at my club and failing the race simulation so hard. And I tell my coach, I'm like, there's no way I can keep going like this if I want to make it to next year's Olympics. So my coach, do you have a solution? And I was like, yeah, I know this guy I was introduced to, and I want to call him. I want to know if he's interested in working with me. And the same day, I talked to B210, and I talked to the psychologist, and he's like, yeah, let's schedule for next Tuesday. It was just like, it was so relieving to be heard. And yep.
I find that's the main thing too, is to, for the athletes and for everyone to feel comfortable and to be heard. Cause sometimes it can be scary to reach out when you need help. Right. Yeah. So to be able to have those resources and to grow and to hear your story on it too is it's good. It's good. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you think about your journey that you'd like to share that we haven't touched on? I mean, we've covered so much.
I feel like, just, we've gone through a lot of things. And it's just, in general, that's yeah, I'm really proud of my journey. And you know what? No, one thing I'll add is that people sometimes ask me if I have regrets. And I mean, I could have a lot, right? From my suspension, from my fourth place and not feeling like I was ready enough. I could have a lot of regrets, but I don't. And you know why? Because there's no point. There's absolutely no point in regretting something that happened in the past, because no matter how much you regret and no matter how much it prevents you from sleeping at night, there's no changing it right now. You can change from the future, or you can even like apologize if you're thinking of something that happened, or like clear waters with someone you have a conflict with. You know, that's stuff that you can do, but you cannot regret on what happened before, right? So sometimes I'll say, like, the only regrets I have in my life is when I went to Japan in 2018. I went before the games. I did not buy that chef knife that I saw in this market, and this is my biggest regret in my life. But no, that's one thing I realized. There's just no point. Like, sometimes I'll think, like, it would have been so much simpler if I didn't go back with my ex at the time, you know, with the contamination and everything. But it happened. And that made me a different person. And the person you have in front of you today would probably not be here if not for everything that happened. That's all it is.
I love that outlook. That's a way to live by. Mm-hmm. And like I said, so inspiring, and really it speaks to your journey. And like you said, it's got you to where you are today, going through all those situations.
Yeah.
Well, Laurence, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. I'm so glad that we worked this out and I got to meet you. Thank you so much for being on Her Love of Sports.
Thank you for having me.
To catch all the latest, make sure to follow us on social media at Her Love of Sports and check out herloveofsports.com.